Hello and welcome back. My name is Archronos, and thank you very much for checking out the second episode of my Last of Us React. This is, of course, for the second episode of the first season, which is the episode Infected. I'd like to thank everybody for their kind comments and feedback on the first episode. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it informative. I want to address some of the feedback I got here, just to let you know the camera issues have been sorted now, hopefully. So you should see everything in stunning HD moving forward, and I will be more conscious of my microphone and where I have it positioned during the whole episode so that you can hear me clearly throughout. In regards to where this episode is going, I have made this clear before. I am a huge fan of the games. I've played through Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2, and I've also done the Left Behind DLC for the first game as well. So I know the story pretty well. Some people were asking me just on predictions on where I think things will go and to sort of comment from the standpoint of where they actually go and where I see differences and probably make some predictions for episode 3 and onwards. So that's something I'm going to try and work in. In regards to this episode, this is of course the journey to the office, which I was very excited to see that they're going to tackle at the end of the first episode. So we're going to have Joel, Tess, and Ellie make their way to a bunch of rundown office buildings. You would have saw them just in the closing scenes last week. It's like two sort of skyscrapers. One is fallen over and is leaning against the other one. These are just completely abandoned office buildings. There's no survivors in them at all, and they've unfortunately been taken up by quite a few infected if they stay accurate to the games. This will, of course, be the first run-in with clickers as well. Clickers being the most superior form of infected that you can run into in the Last of Us world. It's where the cordyceps brain fungus is at its most advanced, and the infected are at their most deadly. This should be... Actually, no, I was going to say this should be the first encounter for Ellie, but spoiler time, this is not Ellie's first encounter with clickers, because the Left Behind DLC is prequel DLC which takes place before the first game. So the Left Behind DLC is set before the first game, and it covers Ellie's time with her best friend Riley and what happens to them both in the lead up to the first game actually starting. You would have heard Ellie and Marlene briefly talk about Riley last week in the first episode. I expect the show to actually tackle that friendship in some detail in upcoming episodes, but what happens during that DLC would be Ellie's first exposure to clickers. When we see her now in the show in the second episode here, it won't be her first time encountering them. She obviously will not have combat skills or prowess in dealing with them. Joel will, because Joel is very familiar with them. As you will recall him speaking to Tess last week when they encountered the dead one that was stuck to the wall. So Joel will be no stranger to them whatsoever, but Ellie will still be quite fearful of them. So I expect some run-ins with those. It's highly likely that we're going to be saying goodbye to a character, unfortunately. No prizes for guessing on who it is. The thing about Last of Us that you have to know is that you shouldn't really get attached to main characters in any way, or what seems like major characters. Last of Us is not like Walking Dead, where they take a character and they run with them for a long time and get lots of story out of them. Last of Us is all about the prices that you face in life and the cost of human actions and survival of the fittest, really. So don't be surprised to see a character you thought was going to be huge in the season just drop out straight away. If they go down that route, this will, of course, have huge narrative impact on relationships that are already being forged right now, and where characters go on to develop rapidly in the future. I won't say too much. I mean, I've made it painfully obvious who I'm talking about right now, but I obviously don't want to name them yet because I haven't seen the episode, but I fully expect them to cover that. In terms of TV show, there's probably more than enough there for this episode, so I don't see things going too far beyond that major event. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Indonesia in 2003. Okay, so this is 20 years ago. Must be going back to another flashback with the doctors, maybe? I imagine they're trying to find like some world-class virologists or something. Like experts in fungi, that kind of thing.
Maaf sudah mengganggu makan. Universitas Indonesia. Kita memiliki orang yang tepat.
Yeah, they were looking for microbiologists, as I thought. So the world outbreak hasn't yet happened, but it's getting to the stage where like world governments are starting to panic a bit. Either that or this could be about actually engineering it, maybe.
Ini opio cordyceps. Tapi kenapa menggunakan klorazol untuk mempersiapkan slide?
So this is the first time they've discovered cordyceps in a human. The doctor stated it was her belief that it cannot survive. Again, this is 20 years ago, before where our story is taking place at the moment. Doctor's examining a cadaver here, and looks like it's been shot in the head. And the military person asked them to inspect the lower leg, where they have a bite mark, it looks like. So the military person has confirmed that this is a bite from a human on the lower leg of the cadaver. The doctor has found living specimen inside the cadaver's mouth, similar to what we saw last week when Sarah went into her neighbor's house. We saw the infected with like tentacles coming out of their mouth.
Kapan ini terjadinya, Pak?
Kurang lebih 30 jam yang lalu, Bu.
The military person said that this person who was dead in the mortuary slab became violent for no reason and attacked 4 people, and she was locked in a secure room while police were called. When the police turned up, they had no choice but to shoot her. The 4 people who got bit were all killed as well to try and contain the incident. So this military guy has confirmed that this microbiologist has been brought in here to try and make a cure or a vaccine, try and stop this spread. The doctors confirmed that there is no cure, no vaccine, and a recommendation is that the entire city where this incident has happened in Indonesia is destroyed. It's quite interesting what she said there, because she said that this was her life's work. As in, she's been working for her entire life with cordyceps. This is the first time that cordyceps has ever made the jump into humans, and she was so scared by her findings that she recommended the entire city is destroyed. And she became scared for her welfare because of it, so that's pretty scary stuff when somebody who's a supposed expert on cordyceps recommends that a city is destroyed rather than try and tackle any sort of cure or vaccine. Okay, so Joel doesn't trust her yet because of the infection findings.
Show us your arm.
They've obviously sat there and watched her sleep all night, waiting for her to turn.
There's not gonna be anything bad in here?
Just you.
Oh, funny.
Joel's hand's starting to hurt a bit from killing the guard. That is extremely fresh looking bread.
I'm gonna talk to you like you're an adult, okay? Joel and I aren't good people.
They are very good people.
We've heard this a million times. Vaccines, miracle cures. None of it works, ever.
You, man, I didn't ask for this.
You and me both. This isn't gonna end well, Tess.
Joel is obviously very skeptical of this because this is pretty much how he lost his daughter.
If she so much as twitches.
Don't.
She's a menace. So again, as I commented on in the previous episode, Joel is constantly seeking for ways to get out of this whole arrangement.
Can I have a gun?
Absolutely not.
Okay, Jesus, fine. I'll just have a sandwich.
So yeah, Joel's gonna constantly try and seek to get the easiest way out of this. He wants no part in what's going on here. He's kind of just been swept downriver by the whole thing. He doesn't really feel like he's in control at all. And he's obviously... he's gonna be self-protective of himself and his own feelings. He doesn't want to revisit the trauma that happened to him with his daughter again, so... he's gonna see striking similarities with this whole setup and his own personal loss, and just doesn't want to even expose himself to that again.
We should get moving.
Quite impressive that they went for a day shot here of the office, both from an expenses standpoint and also in the game. When they visit the office, it's actually a pouring storm at night.
Yeah.
There's heavy rain, darkness, poor visibility,
Worked here, but it
whereas
most places.
here they're doing the exact opposite. I actually think this is where we're meant to be, so I think it was actually the bit they were at that I should have looked around a little bit more.
Well, there's the Capitol building.
We need to get around this mess.
The Capitol building is the
Downtown
the
area?
dome in the background there.
Was. Now it's a giant wasteland.
We won't reach that until the morning.
So the State House is across there. It's about a 10-minute walk if you could go straight.
So,
Long way or short way?
The State House that they're referring to is the rendezvous that they're bringing Ellie to drop her off. Drop her off at, 'cause that's as far as they need to go with her.
How did you get bit?
you know the old mall in the QZ?
The one that's sealed off and boarded up and no one's supposed to go in? Ever? That one?
Whatever, I snuck in. Wanted to see what it was like. Didn't think there was gonna be anything in there, and then one just came at me out of nowhere. Thought I got away, but
So it was just you in there alone?
yeah.
Interesting.
How old are you?
That is a lie.
14.
Wow. Well, I mean, you got some balls on you, sister.
Thanks.
So she was actually describing the Left Behind DLC there, but she chose to lie for her own reasons. She was not alone when she went to that
Somebody's
mall.
gonna be coming after you, right? Like mom, dad, boyfriend.
I'm an orphan, and no. Everyone said the open city was crazy. Like swarms of infected running around everywhere.
Not exactly like that.
You know, people like to tell stories.
So there aren't super infected that explode fungus spores on you? Or ones with split open heads that stay in the dark like bats?
Well, is there? So apparently we are not going to the office.
You gotta be kidding me. You ever stay in a place like this?
No, a little out of our league.
How do you even know what this is?
Have you heard of books? Wait, are we going in there?
Yeah, we gotta get to the stairwell on the other side.
Well, I don't know how to swim.
Just so it's out there, I can't swim.
That is quite accurate. She doesn't know how to swim.
Ding ding! Yes, sir, I would like your finest suite, please. Yes, ma'am. Would you like me to check your luggage? Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am.
You're a weird kid.
You're a weird kid.
You ever stay at a place like this? Before it all went to shit, I mean?
No. No, this is too rich for my blood.
Bet it was nice.
So this is quite interesting, the place that they're at the moment. It's a flooded hotel, but narratively, they've rejigged the timeline. This flooded hotel they do visit, but not now. It's like fairly deep into their journey. Not hugely deep. Like, it's not miles away from where we should be right now, but it doesn't take place where it is now. They've done a real number here with the timeline and the set pieces. It's like warping what I know about the games. So I'm trying to like keep track of what I know about the games and the show at the same time. They're kind of like crossing over. Yeah. So these physical difficulties that they're having at the moment, climbing through the broken down hotel, this is what the office should have been. It was the office that was collapsed like this, but they've chosen to make the hotel a collapsed rundown building instead. But the hotel is also a real location that they visit also, and isn't in this state, so they've like taken both locations and combined them into one.
So, you two, like,
Pass.
how'd you end up in Boston?
Pass. No more questions about me.
You can sense the uneasiness here.
No, I thought you went to
Was it hard? Like, knowing they were people once?
That's a very interesting question that she's asking him.
They're connected.
More than you know. The fungus also grows underground. Long fibers like wires, some of them stretching over a mile. You step on a patch of cordyceps in one place, and you can wake a dozen infected from somewhere else.
Quite intriguing the comment she made about
What do you do then?
stepping on cordyceps though. Okay. Alright.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
Well, there's a way across from the top floor.
Well, then I guess it's fine.
I used to take it all the time.
Okay.
Players of the series will of course recognize the museum instantly.
To where we going, Tess?
Capitol building's in this direction.
You don't seem to be able to see it there. Not sure why she's so confident it's down this way. Obviously she knows the area. We're not going to doubt her that she knows where she's going, but yeah, it's not particularly clear that you're meant to go down that alleyway.
I have a spare hand.
Congratulations.
The museum is a significant set piece in the game. How they utilize it here, I will let them reveal before I say more. I'm very, very curious now about where this is going. I love the fact that Joel has got himself a nice automatic rifle as well. You don't get no automatic rifle at this stage of the game. No. No automatic rifle for you at this stage. He is like equipped for endgame at this point. I'm loving the atmosphere here. And the tension. This whole scene though, visually, hugely impressive. Oh, this is so good.
All right, watch your head. All right, go, go, go. I'm alive.
There it is, the sound we all know so well. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the clicker. It is extremely important right now that they do not make a single sound. Clickers have superior hearing. If they make even the slightest sound, the clicker will be on top of them. It looks like all three of them know this very well. Ellie was actually being quite smart there by fleeing underneath the table. Most of the noise and the focus would have been on Tess. If it's not obvious, clickers can't see. Clickers form their visuals from what they hear. Their hearing is like their sonar. So everything that they hear, they see through the use of sound. So it's not looking through their eyes like we do. They basically listen to form picture. It's right beside him. Yeah. So they're very keen here to explain to the audience that clickers can't see. You saw Joel shine his torch in the clicker's eyes there. Nothing actually happened. This is even told to you in a tutorial at one point in the game. You're even told that in fact it can't see your torch, so don't worry about leaving it on, because a player can click their torch on and off in the game with their stick on the controller. Whoopsie. Joel seemed to be quite inexperienced with clickers. He knew what they were and how they move around, but
Yeah.
he seemed to be inexperienced with them.
So we'll deal with it then. I got it.
What about the kid? Maybe the first bite didn't take. And what about the second?
How about you just take the good news?
I think they're trying to make out here that Tess's foot is broken. That shouldn't be a huge issue for them though, because like in terms of how far they have to travel, it's not that far. You can see the destination in the background there, the State Hall, the place with the yellowed coloured roof. That's where they're going. There you see it in the middle. That's where they have to drop her off. It's a very visually significant building. Joel again has concerns that she's wounded. He doesn't trust her at all. He doesn't believe the whole not infected story, so he's cautious of the fact that she has a fresh wound. But again, time-wise, they will have encountered many humans before that have already turned in this time, so what she is telling them seems to be true. Visually interesting scenario here. Abandoned street, vehicles sitting around. Dried out and deserted. Dead bodies, questionable on how long they've been dead there. The blood looks kind of fresh. And there's
Went inside.
definitely fresh blood there. So the reason I was describing this place all as like dry and deserted and stuff is this whole area is all flooded when the player gets here. Oh, are you getting emotional because we're coming to the end of our journey? Here we are. Capitol building.
No. No, no, no.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
Tess is panicking because this is the rendezvous and everybody's dead.
No.
I'm staying. I mean, our luck had to run out sooner or later.
She's infected.
Show me.
She must have got bit whenever they were in the hotel.
I need you to get her to Bill and Frank's.
No.
They'll take her off your hands. They'll handle it from here.
No, I can't. They won't take her. They're
They
not
will.
gonna take
They
her.
will, because you'll convince them. This is your chance. You get her there. You keep her alive. And you set everything right. Please say yes, Joel. Please.
Farewell, my friend. Okay. So that's related to what Tess was talking about.
What are you doing?
Making sure that they don't follow you. Say who you can say.
No! We're not leaving her! Get off me, you fucker! I'm not going with you!
There's literally nothing I can say right now that the scene doesn't cover. Is she too scared to do it? I mean, she's trying, but it looks like there's some fear there too. Oh no. So that scene was difficult, learning experience as well. It seemed like the infected aren't able to tell when somebody is already infected. You saw that infected that attacked Tess there was trying to convert her, even though she would have been already on course to be converted already. Like, you saw Tess's arm was starting to shake before the infected broke in, so like she didn't have long left anyway. So that was episode 2. Pretty much went as far along as I predicted it would. They covered the journey to the rendezvous, and we had the cast member exit, which was of course Anna Torv's last turn as Tess. She was only in it for the first and second episode, and that's the end of Tess now, unfortunately. They have narratively covered the events of the game accurately so far. Tess does, of course, get injured in the game as well, and it is at the courthouse where she makes the decision not to continue with Joel and Ellie and to stay behind. However, it is not infected who they are trying to flee at the courthouse. They went a completely different direction with the courthouse scene there. So firstly, when they arrive at the courthouse and the whole place is flooded, it is Fedra, that come to the building, the military government agents in the body armor and stuff. You saw some of them last week.
They're here.
Damn it.
It is Fedra who are trying to get into the courthouse, and that Tess is keen to try and stay behind and stop. And Tess actually has a pretty bad death in the game as well. They are separated from each other, and well, sorry, they're not separated from each other. They make the decision to part amicably, and Joel and Ellie will continue on without Tess. And Tess is actually shot by Fedra. What happens with the player is the player as Joel takes Ellie out the back of the courthouse and up onto the balconies, so they end up overlooking the whole scene. And Fedra get into the building, and they're too late to catch up with Joel and Ellie, but they basically deal with Tess there and then, and the player, more or less, if they know where to look in the scene, get to see what happened to Tess.
Come on. Make this easy for me.
I can find.
No, just go! Just go.
Ellie,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this.
get a move on. We'll go upstairs. What do we got from there?
Take out the door. You with me.
Yes, sir.
Oh my god. Tess.
By Tess, because she's pretty much lying there dead when they get above the scene, and there's a sense of urgency there, which again they tried to reproduce at the end of that scene, but for very different reasons. There's a sense of urgency from the player because Fedra is coming through the building, trying to get to the player and catch up with Joel and Ellie. So the Joel has to get out of the building as quickly as possible, and Fedra chased them up through the balcony of the building and through the courthouse and into an adjacent building. So they've went a different way in this, in that they've made out that the courthouse here, or the state house, was destroyed at the end of that episode, and that Joel and Ellie had to run away. Outcome wise, it still ends up the exact same way, but again, two kind of different ways of doing it. I did like the decision there to give Tess a terrible death, not because she was a terrible person. Anna Torv was a tremendous actress in this and will be sorely missed, but I think they're keen to push the narrative consequence of the story that they're telling. They want to make it clear that they're not afraid to do this kind of thing, and that they want to give characters gory, shocking deaths, which I really, really appreciate. I hate whenever shows take characters where a death is predetermined and predecided, and they just string them out for episodes and episodes, or even seasons and seasons, and it actually is annoying. Not that you want that character kicked out straight away, but just that they go so far away from the original source material that you don't know what's going on. So I like that everybody was again expecting the death there, but you got something so viscerally disturbing and shocking to watch that you were taken aback by what you were watching, because, as I said, players don't actually get to see Tess die in the game. They knew it was going to happen there, but they were expecting that there was going to be some sort of shootout and the Tess would be shot in that. So I think the fact that they again blindsided the player or the viewer here with an unexpected scene there is just tremendous, glorious. I love that kind of thing. So then, what else do we have in this episode? They also did something very different in this, where I picked up on this during the episode when I was watching it there. Tess started talking about the infection being a physical thing. They said that, she said, sorry, that if you step on a patch of cordyceps, all of the infected nearby will know where you are. That cordyceps grows underneath the ground and can grow for, I think it was a mile, she said. So I find this interesting because that is not a thing in the game, or at least it's not a thing that they have clearly explained in the game. Generally, if you make noise in the game, infected will come running to where you are. Here, they seem to be making out that the cordyceps is actually a physical threat and that you can actually walk on it or step on it. We saw that the last guy in the state house there, who was not fully dead yet, he tried to reawaken, and he wasn't necessarily going to attack anybody, but he was getting up and making himself look like a threat, so Joel shot him. But the little like vines or tentacles of cordyceps went into the ground, and all of the infected who were nearby all knew immediately that there was somebody alive in the courthouse, and they all came running to the location. That's not a thing in The Last of Us, so this is a decision that they've made for themselves in the show. I actually think it's cool, don't get me wrong. I like what they've done here. I like the fact that the fungus is a physical threat. I think actually that it differs from the game for two reasons, and this is speculative by me, of course. It's not actually based on any fact. It's just me thinking post-mortem about what's going on here. I think it's difficult in the game to explain that to a new player so that they actually understand it, because you're basically defining areas of the game where the player can't walk. So it's difficult in terms of a gaming experience where if a player steps on something, they need to visually and audibly be explained to that what they did was wrong and that they are now being punished for it. So player walks on cordyceps in the game, zombies come to where they are, or sorry, infected. Let's just refer to them as infected, because Last of Us doesn't really have zombies, even though that's essentially what they are. Player walks on cordyceps and infected rush to where the player is. That is a confusing experience in a game, because you have to be able to clearly visually display cordyceps as a threat on the ground, so the player can visually see, hey, this is a place that cordyceps is, I can't walk on this. And also you have that responsive action that happens when they walk on it, which is that the infected come to that area and try and kill them. And it's difficult to convey that in a game properly, I think. So this could be a thing that the writers and directors of the original game series wanted to do with the series, but found that it was too difficult to try and implement into the game, both visually and also in an understandable fashion. It could have been always just a conscious thing that we were supposed to have figured out by now when playing the games, but they were never able to find a way to try and convey it properly. So this could be a little bit of retroactive change on what we know about the fungus and how it operates, and that generally it's a threat that we have been dealing with in the game but just weren't aware of it. But I would say it's more likely just that it's very difficult to convey that in the game, and they wanted to keep things a little bit more simple. And the other reason that I think they've made this decision as well is that it lets them do a lot more tension, and makes the infected a lot more dangerous as well. I think it's easier to understand this kind of thing in a TV show than it is in a game too. So I think in a TV show this will work very, very well. The museum was brilliant. I enjoyed the museum immensely. The museum in the game is actually a mix of infected and clickers. The fact that they chose just to focus on clickers is totally fine, because clickers are such a reverent, feared creature that they totally deserve their own set piece scene anyway. So I love that the first encounter with them was done so majestically and used as much of their lore and their frightening appearance and sound that they make and the way they hunt their victims. They showed all that just absolutely gloriously. It was just really, really good stuff. We also had the interesting decision to switch up the journey to the hotel and courthouse. Okay, so how this actually works in the game: Joel and Ellie journey to the collapsed offices, and you go in there, and the office is in a rundown state. There's a lot of physical threats in terms of collapsed buildings, rooms. Rooms are inaccessible. You have to climb up walls and jump down off high places, and generally it's a very physically demanding space to try and traverse, because the building is in such disrepair that humans should not be in it. And it's also got a bunch of infected in it and a couple of clickers, but generally it's just infected. Very full-on physical experience there in terms of dealing with the infected too. It's where you learn a lot of physical combat using melee weapons. Not much actual gunplay in it, but a lot of melee weapons and fighting off infected and trying to stay alive. Stealth takedowns as well, like sneaking up on infected, taking them down so other infected don't hear what's happening. You get to encounter clickers in a sleeping state. So clickers, when they're not hunting, don't make that clicking sound. They just if you imagine a human running on electric and it just shuts down and just stays in like a dormant state where it's not functioning, like the power has been turned off. That's kind of what a clicker is like, and there's a lot of those in the building as well, where the player has to learn what to do when they encounter one of those and how to take them down correctly. So, for example, if you try and melee a clicker when it's facing you, the clicker will just wake up, grab you, and kill you. So you have to try and take the clicker down from behind in stealth combat quietly, and definitely you don't want to mess it up, because again, if the clicker gets loose of the melee grapple, they will kill you. So I was quite intrigued to find that the office was used as bait almost last week to keep things really interesting for a player keen to see where things are going to go next. And then I think they wanted to say, hey, we're telling our own story here, which is what I commented on whenever I said that the scene was shown in daylight instead of nighttime in a storm. They showed like the office block in just full-on daylight visuals, just to say this is our show, and we're not constricted by the rules of where the game went or what time of day even it was. So we will do our own thing. And they obviously went off around the road bridge, where you had that scene of Joel and Ellie walking off around the bridge together. So there could have been a number of factors there. Expenses wise, it was probably easier to do the hotel scene that they did, because it's a lot simpler, and it gave Joel and Ellie a chance to interact there together. And secondly, again, it could have been just restricted to the fact that they may not have been able to reproduce the office scene with the budget or time that they had, so they had to basically make the most of what kind of locations and stuff that they had access to and how much time they had. So they made it work. The flooded hotel actually takes place narratively after Tessa's death. So they leave the courthouse in the game. They go through a location I don't want to talk about because I don't want to spoil it in case the show uses that later. And after that location, then they go on to visit the flooded hotel. They changed up the threats in the flooded hotel as well. The flooded hotel is used to have the player face raiders for not really the first time. It's not really the first time you have sort of human to human threats in the game, but it is the first time that you have a number of them. So they face quite a lot of human raiders in there, or resistance, or gang members, whatever you want to call them. Depends what way the show handles them as well, but they're more or less raiders or just scavengers whenever you encounter them in the game. And they do all of that stuff and make their way out of the hotel to another location then after that. So the fact that they took that location and brought it back before Tessa's death to use it as a narrative set piece was quite interesting. And then that meant that we never actually visited the office. So this is where I was talking about just how things were jumbled up in my mind and trying to keep track of them. I thought that was quite interesting. I think quite a lot of veteran players of The Last of Us will be a little bit confused as to the decision making there. I don't think there's going to be any players or fans of the game series that are going to say that any wrong steps were made there. I think what they did worked brilliantly. Very, very enjoyable episode. Another one that I enjoyed immensely, and I'm really, really liking where they're taking the show. They're not afraid to make bold decisions, individual decisions, and they're reassuring me that when they deviate from the source material, they know what they're doing and that they will bring it back around. So in terms of where they go now, they talked about Bill and Frank there, which is something that they mentioned in the first episode as well. You would have heard Ellie talk briefly about Bill and Frank when she was looking at Joel's code book with the different eras of music and how music is used as warning signals. The direction that they take this now is going to be interesting, because one of the most enjoyable early segments of the game is actually meeting Bill and visiting the area that Bill is in. The area that Bill is in is extremely significant because I don't want to say too much, but it's heavily based on what kind of person Bill is and how he conducts his life. How he survives, basically, is what makes the area where Bill is so interesting. I think it's going to be interesting that Frank is there also, because Frank is Bill's love interest in the game, and Frank isn't actually in the game because he's unfortunately already died in the lead up to where the player meets Bill. So the player never actually gets to meet Frank. All Last of Us players know who Frank is, but they have never actually met this character. So the fact that there is actually an actor associated with this role now, and Bill and Frank are together when the show goes there, is going to be interesting, because we're now entering a proper sliding doors scenario where the two stories are going to part ways properly, because everything that happens with this character of Frank never took place in the game. And also, you're going to have an alive character interacting with other alive characters that were in the game. So the outcome of a lot of upcoming events is going to be very different. It's going to be extremely difficult for me to predict where things are going from here. This essentially means you could take the character of Frank, for example, and you could run with this character as long as you wanted, because, like I said, this character never had a predetermined existence in the game where narratively I can predict, well, when we get to X episode or X event, this character will no longer be with us. It's not like Tess, because Tess was always destined to die in this second episode, but this character of Frank doesn't have that predetermined fate. So it's that curveball that can't be predicted, if you know what I mean. So I'm very, very keen to see where things are going now. But yeah, tremendous second episode. I'm loving this show. I hope everybody is loving it as well. I want to say just how grateful I am that you've checked out this second React episode. I hope you're enjoying this show as much as I am, and that you're enjoying these React episodes. If you are, please drop me a like and a subscription, and just leave me a comment just saying what you like about the Reacts, what you don't like, the kind of content you're enjoying in them, what you like to see more of, any improvement you want to see, that kind of thing. I'm very interested in all of it. But apart from that, again, thank you very much for watching. Endure and survive, and I'll see you in the next one.